Got to get into our regular media segment on Mondays when we catch up with the media writer for the Australian, Sophie Ellsworth. Sophie, it's always good to talk to you, but boy, you've really been stirring up a hornet's nest today. You're reporting about the ratings problems at the ABC, in particular at Radio National Breakfast, a sort of a flagship program for them. You've been dealing in the facts, the ratings, the fact that the audience has fallen away, but there seems to be a lot of a response that just attacks you for bothering to point this out.
Well, there certainly is, Chris. Look, I wrote this story today showing that the flagship program on Radio National, Patricia Karvelas's breakfast program, since she took over from Fran Kelly 2 years ago, the ratings have absolutely plummeted. They've fallen 34%, Chris, down to about 250,000 listeners. Now, this is in dire straits, and I've spoken to people within the radio arm that have told me this is a problem. Their radio stations across all their networks are in free fall when it comes to ratings. And oddly enough, I was just reporting the facts and pointing out to our readers the fall in listeners. And Patricia Karvelas has been on Twitter today, on that platform she declared she was leaving, tweeting about me. She's been posting things on Instagram that this is a hatchet job. Apparently it's a woman, women who stand up for things, they're getting attacked. It's all nonsense, really. I think she probably should focus on the ratings and how they're falling rather than posting about the story itself. But I've obviously hit a raw nerve. And Chris, as you said, I'm just dealing in facts.
Yeah, have a look at this. She says it's another Murdoch hit piece against her today. And she says there's too many important stories that she shouldn't be worrying about this, but she is apparently. She says, I've watched them target my friends and colleagues for years now. It's her turn for targeting. No, Patricia, this is just the cut and thrust of the media. And this is people reporting on your role as a media host. Now, I know Patricia Karvelas reasonably well. I worked with her at The Australian. She worked on Sky News. She got her start in television on a program when Angelo Frangopoulos gave her a program here on Sky News. So we know her well. I thought she transitioned to radio very well, but it's not working out in some respects. She is a shocking lefty, but then Fran Kelly was a shocking lefty too. And the interesting thing with the ABC, Sophie, is that she's a real favourite with them, obviously, because despite this, they've got her fronting Q&A as well. So they must think she's working in some respects at the ABC.
Well, it was interesting, Chris, because this morning when this story was everywhere, the ABC put out a press release saying that she's hosting Q&A next year, which really is not news because she was never leaving the program, but they've tried to divert it away from this story. I know Patricia. I used to go on Radio National on her program when I was a personal finance writer. I'm just reporting facts. And Chris, I do argue this is a story of national interest because we are paying for Radio National and their ratings are in free fall. And this is a problem. This is why they are overhauling all of their stations. So you and I and the viewers, we pay for the ABC, and that's why people want to know what's going on. So this is the issue they've got on their hands. The ratings are down. Q&A ratings are down too. The ABC is not relating to the general punters, Chris. That is where they are letting down their viewers, their readers, their listeners, and they've got to do something about it.
Yeah. They've got a problem, there's no doubt, and your reporting is right on point. Here's a bit of Patricia Karvelas and Q&A. See if you can spot any problems in this little clip.
When the river was deep, I didn't falter. When the mountain was high, I still believed. When the valley was low, it didn't stop me. No, no. I knew you were waiting. I knew you were waiting for me.
Now, Sophie, I'm all for a bit of fun. I like to have a laugh on this program, but that gives you a clue that the program might no longer be the main serious forum for national political affairs and discussion.
I mean, Chris, how can you take it seriously? And just quickly on the Q&A program, it's like the drum. You get on there a whole panel that agree with each other and one token conservative. Again, this is a taxpayer-funded broadcaster. They need to have a range of views. They're not doing that. That's why the drum's gone. Q&A will be next on the chopping block. So Patricia's got tough tasks ahead of her, but Q&A I'm surprised it's kept on, Chris. I mean, if they've got rid of the drum, I'm not sure why they've kept Q&A.
Yeah, it is a bit bizarre too. It's a heavy workload for Patricia Karvelas. Doing breakfast radio is grinding, especially when it's serious current affairs like Radio National Breakfast, and to do Q&A on top of that, when they used to be a full-time job in its own right. They've also lost Karina Cavella, a very prominent newsreader on the ABC, and she hasn't said anything publicly, Sophie, but there's a bit of scuttlebutt saying that she's been a bit disappointed with the political bias, for want of a better term, at the ABC.
Oh, that's right, Chris. Look, I wrote this story in The Australian in the media section today. There's been such a support for Karina. She's a very popular newsreader. She's worked in pretty much every state. She read the news in Perth and Brisbane. She was a breakfast presenter here in Melbourne. She's now in Sydney on their News 24 channel. And look, sources close to her have told me that she's concerned with the way the ABC is going and the activism that is going on in there. And she's seen the light and she's out of there. And I think she'll be snapped up very quickly by the commercial broadcasters. She's a very popular newsreader, and you can just see that with the outpouring of response to her remarks, or the remarks close to her. She didn't make them herself. She spoke very highly of the ABC. She was very dignified. But sources have told me there's serious concerns there.
Yeah, I got to say, she's one of those ABC newsreaders and reporters. She's done a lot of reporting as well, where you wouldn't know her politics. You just wouldn't have any idea what her politics are, and that's the way it should be, supposedly, for everyone at the ABC. Thanks so much for joining us, Sophie, and thanks so much for joining us every Monday night throughout the year. It's just been brilliant to get your analysis and insights into the media. Have a great Christmas and New Year.